And with that, we bring on one of our friends, Fox Sports NFL analyst. He played. He was a scout. Bucky Brooks. Panthers, Seahawks. Seattle had a nice draft. Okay, so I want to go back to the argument J-Mac and I had. So he does not like what Atlanta did. And my takeaway is I don't have to love it, but I can get it. And so I think Bijan Robinson, I was told this by somebody I trust, was the cleanest player in the draft. There is no whiff here. He's going to work. And he's not just going to be a 900, 1100. He'll work as a rookie, and he'll get you touchdowns as a rookie. People say they've already got a good, young, value running back. What would you say to that?
There's a difference between good and great. When you talk to the great running backs, and I've talked to LaDainian Tomlinson and Terrell Davis about this very topic, the difference between a good running back can get you 1,000 yards. A great running back puts you up to 1,500, 1,600 yards. And there's been this debate where people talked about the devaluation of the running back position. When you look at the backs that have gone in the top 10 of late, they all have worked with maybe the exception of Leonard Fournette. When you think about Todd Gurley was Rookie of the Year. He was Offensive Player of the Year. You think about what Ezekiel Elliott did for the Cowboys, 2-time rushing champ. Christian McCaffrey's been all-world when he came into the league with the Carolina Panthers. Saquon Barkley has proven that he can do it. And so when you take a running back up there, if they have the talent, they normally give you the production that you would expect. And so with Bijan Robinson, this dude is a star. He's very similar to me in terms of what LaDainian Tomlinson was when I remember watching LaDainian come out of TCU. This guy can run it. He can catch it. And going all the way back to yesteryear when the San Diego Chargers, and I think, LT had 30, 31 touchdowns, could score a million different ways, played at an MVP level. Bijan Robinson can give you that kind of production. And I think it's telling that Arthur Smith, who coached Derrick Henry, understands the importance of having a superstar back in the backfield. I heard Jason talking about the Falcons and a top 5 rushing offense. Think about what that says. He's like, yeah, we're top 5, but I want better. If I get a better running back, we can go to the next level, which is why that was the pick.
And by the way, the more average the quarterback, the more the running game matters. Jared Goff, to me, was never the same when Todd Gurley got hurt and left. He was never – Sean McVay had less confidence every start going forward after that. Okay, Anthony Richardson over Will Levis. I think tape is the most important thing. But I do think at quarterback, from the time the season ends until draft day, you can do yourself favors or puncture your momentum. I thought the gun show by Will Levis, I was told by a coach and 2 executives, turn off. Anthony Richardson was grateful and humble. He penned a letter. I got to be honest. If it was a go either way thing, I think Levis is more ready to play, but I could see it. I could see a GM saying, I'm not going with a cocky kid. Both need fixing. One guy appears to be more amenable to being fixed. Is that fair?
Oh, no. I think it's fair. And I think it came down to Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. The top 2 guys were, to me, head and shoulders above the rest of the guys when it came to it. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, whatever order, they're there. So now it comes down to Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Anthony Richardson is a bigger, faster, stronger prospect. And so when you're thinking about, because people have made both these guys, they use the Josh Allen comparison.
Right.
Well, if you're going to do the Josh Allen comparison, I'm probably going to make my bet on the more explosive athlete, which is what Anthony Richardson is. But really, this draft pick to me is more like the drafts we talk about in the NBA. When we look at the NBA, they draft guys who don't have numbers, but they draft on potential, prototypes, and projection. So let's just use Anthony Richardson as if he's Giannis. Okay, so when Giannis came in the league, long, athletic, no one knew that Giannis would be this, but he developed and he hit. And so maybe the Indianapolis Colts are saying, we saw what Shane Steichen did with Jalen Hurts. Yeah. So now we're going to give him a bigger, faster version of Jalen Hurts.
That's interesting.
What could he do? And I'm not saying that I was an Anthony Richardson fan because I thought Hendon Hooker was a better prospect than him and Will Levis. But now that we know where he's at, maybe the thinking is we're going to pour into him like NBA teams pour into their players. They develop them, and maybe we have a superstar in our hands, but it will take time. And so we'll see if it works out. But if it does work out, it opens up the floodgates for all of those quarterbacks at the lower levels that are playing the position that are great athletes but may not be polished. Now you open up Pandora's box in terms of more athletes getting to that position and playing.
Bucky, guys have taken a lot of shots at me through the years, not specifically you, but I have said Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield. I like Josh Rosen and know him. There are times I've been tough on Aaron Rodgers, the attitude guy. When you watch Patrick Mahomes, is that humble? Herbert, humble. Trevor Lawrence, I don't want attitude out of college. And Anthony Richardson, I could see him sitting down. He's crying last night. I'm like, if that's how emotional he is, he had to have interviewed well. Like, it does matter to me. You better come in humble. I think Will Levis, the gun show, the stuff, he's probably a great kid. But it turned me off.
Yeah, I would say it's probably less about Will Levis and that stuff and more about Anthony Richardson.
Okay, you think it's more about the upside
I think it's more about Anthony Richardson. Remember, what we do in the league is we are a copycat community, meaning everyone had to sit there and watch that Super Bowl and watch Jalen Hurts outplay Pat Mahomes. And everybody had to eat their words when it came to, this guy would never make it. Why did they draft him with the Philadelphia Eagles? Yeah. But then over a 3-year period, you saw him develop into a top 5 quarterback. So now that you've seen the development, also Josh Allen certainly helps, but now you're saying, well, if I have the right guy, meaning character-wise, the guy who is all about it, maybe he can develop into something more than what I saw when he was at college.
Who won the draft? Who I thought Philadelphia crushed, but I tend to like Howie Roseman. I thought they got, I always say in this league, get the quarterback, protect the quarterback, get the quarterback weapons, and then draft guys to get their quarterback. I don't think the league's that. Now, that's easier said than done to find those.
They've done it, though. They have absolutely done it.
So who did you think won last night?
So I would give them kudos. I would give the Eagles kudos for doing that. They stick to the formula. They invest in the trenches, offensive, defensive linemen. They always typically spend their top
O-line,
picks.
D-line combo.
That's what they do. And so they throw out ways. The fact that they got Jalen Carter and you ask anybody, Jalen Carter was the best defender in the draft. You have to worry about the character concerns. But guess what they did? They surrounded him by people that know him from college. So let's think about who they have right now. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, and then Jordan Davis. So now you have 3 guys around Jalen Carter to make him feel comfortable in that city. So I think it works there. I would say the Seattle Seahawks did a great job. You get the number 1 corner and the number 1 wide receiver in the draft. The corner, the Witherspoon, he now teams up with Tariq Woolen as they're trying to bring back the Legion of Boom. But JSN, I want everyone to understand how good he was. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson both had immediate impacts in the league. The last time those 3 were together, JSN was the best player, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He had 1,600 yards. So he is an outstanding route runner.
20th.
Yeah, but it's fine because all those guys were not true number 1. So the wide receivers in this class were more complementary players, more so than a Jamar Chase that comes in, commands a double team, dominates the game from outside. But in Seattle, you have DK Metcalf on one side, Tyler Lockett on the other side. You have Pete Carroll who wants to run the ball, and now you have JSN in the slot. How are you going to match up with their 11 personnel package? It's also Pete Carroll saying, Geno Smith last year was not an aberration. We're going to give you weapons to make it easy for you to continue to build upon what he did. So it was a nice pick, nice draft for the Seattle Seahawks.
They had something on ESPN last night. They put up Seattle's last 7 draft picks of note, and it was 7 good players. We downplay a little bit the draft, but I got to tell you something. You can look at the Seattle Seahawks, who had about a 5-year stretch of missing on a lot of guys. They have now had 1 great draft and 2 really good first-round picks. And I don't know if they're pulling back with Geno. I look at him and I think to myself, why draft C.J. Stroud if you think Geno is C.J. Stroud?
Well, you talked about it. So you were talking about Anthony Richardson, humility or whatever. I would say this. They got Russell Wilson out the building, and they have maybe a better teammate at quarterback. And a lot of what they did in terms of Pete Carroll wanting to play a certain way, remember, Pete Carroll's won a lot of games at SC and Seattle doing it a certain way. We're going to run the ball, we're going to play defense, we're going to do these things. I just need the quarterback to be a facilitator. Geno Smith embraced that.
Yes.
It wasn't, hey, man, let me cook, let me do. Oh, no, we're going to do it this way, coach. I got it. And so because they have a guy who is not that Russell wasn't a team first guy, but because he's fully bought into the stuff, well, now they can surround him and run the team the way they see fit. Plus the system that they brought over Shane Waldron, it just works, it clicks, and so they continue to build upon that.
By the way, we thought this was a little funny. I know J-Mac did not appreciate this, but it feels like to me Belichick saw the Jets need a tackle. And he thinks to himself, all right, you want to bring Aaron into town with all those young receivers? Hey, Mike Tomlin, you want our pick? Because Tomlin and Belichick are, they're esteemed AFC guys, respect each other greatly. Pittsburgh jumps the Jets. Didn't that feel like Belichick said, all right, let's call one of my friends in the business?
Well, one way or the other, that was the last opportunity for a team to get an offensive tackle before
a really elite one.
Before there was a gap. And so the Jets are sitting there, and so it is ironic that the Patriots backed up and were like, hey, the Steelers, you can have this pick. We're good. You can have it because it does hurt. The Jets have to find someone on the offensive line to protect because as much as everyone has been excited, I'm sure J-Mac's excited about Aaron Rodgers coming over. I know they have the parade ready and all this other stuff, but I don't know. I would be concerned about a guy who talked about being 90% retired.
With a bunch of kids.
90% retired with young wide receivers. Remember last year, he didn't like the young wide receivers in Green Bay, but now he's going to come play with the young guys with the Jets. So I would just be a little worried about that part of it and the fact that he's 40 years old.
Okay, so Will McDonald, and I know one front office that liked him, but thought he was a top of the second round, late first guy. So where do you fall on the reach thing? And I said, we talk about reaches, but by Thanksgiving, if a guy can play, I don't really care where he got drafted. But where do you fall in as a former scout?
Well, this year was hard. So Ron Wolf used to always say there are about 18 to 24 blue chip prospects, first round talents in every draft. This year, there were about 15 to 17. So now what you have is you have those guys that are rated from 16 to 45. They're going to be on different spots all over the board. So where the Jets might like Will McDonald like high, there are other people that will say, oh, he's probably a mid-second round pick. So it's hard for us on this side to judge because the talent was so balanced in terms of good, not great at the top of the board. And so we'll have to see what their plan is for him before we can even make a determination. But, yes, if he comes off the board, he gets them 7 or 8 sacks early in the year, and he's playing like he's played at Iowa State, you can't say it's a bad pick. I think it's too early to say that it's bad because we just don't know. And that's why it was so hard to kind of predict and project and do mock drafts because the top of the board, it was a very clear divide. Once you got to 15, after that, it was wide open, and you had a lot of good to very good players. You didn't have the blue chip players that you may have in some drafts.
Okay, so I try to be glass half full with all the teams. I have supported Atlanta today. A lot of people didn't. I have supported Houston today. Their belief is C.J. Stroud's really good. We're going to take ourselves out of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. We think we have a chance to be really viable going forward. I'm going to support it. There's those that are going to beat up on Detroit. So they take an off-ball linebacker, they take a running back, and they already have one. I'm going to throw my theory at you, and I want you, Bucky, to laugh at it, roll your eyes at it. So Jared Goff is 2 quarterbacks. One with an excellent elite run game.
Yes.
And then he's another quarterback with an average run game. Swift comes off an injury. I think they move him before the weekend. Their takeaway is, listen, our O-line in Detroit is significantly better than the Packers, Bears, Vikings D-lines. We're going to go a little old school. Jared Goff was at his best when Curley was running downhill. We're going to double down at running back, be a little bit more of a power offense when we go to Chicago outdoors and Green Bay outdoors. Goff's not good outdoors. He's not good in bad weather. He's not good with a middling off with a run game. So I'm trying to be positive here on the Gibbs draft. Their idea is Jared Goff's 2 quarterbacks. When he has a stout, elite run game, he's a top 10 quarterback.
So earlier you talked about the better the quarterback, the less of the importance of the running back position. But when the quarterback is more towards the middle, the more important it is to have the running back that can do some different things to alleviate pressure on him. Jahmyr Gibbs is like Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey and those guys out the backfield. He is more than just your traditional running back. He's a guy that can play in the slot. He can run routes. He can do a bunch of things. I heard you talk about what the Buffalo Bills are doing to catch the Chiefs. Everyone is pouring into their offense because you have to put points on the board. Last year when the Detroit Lions surprised everybody, it was because their offense could light it up. Johnson had the offense going. And so now, to me, this is, the NFC is wide open. Who are the quarterbacks in the NFC that we're worried about? You got Jalen Hurts at the top, maybe Dak. Who else? So if we load up our offense where we can put up 27 to 28 points a game, it gives us a chance to get there. To me, this is them going all in on, we're going to light it up. We're going to let Jared Goff loose by surrounding him with weapons that allow him to take it to another level. Because it's not only Gibbs, when Jameson Williams comes back. So they basically have two new weapons that we really haven't seen that should allow Jared Goff to take his game to an even higher level.
By the way, Kansas City won a Super Bowl with an okay defense. You can win a Super Bowl now with a great offense and the 13th best defense in the league. You cannot win a Super Bowl with the best defense and the 13th offense. You can't do it anymore.
You can't. And I'll say this, like doing radio for the Jaguars every week and watching Doug Peterson, what he's done with the Jaguars, it is all about offensive football. And it's hard for me because I've always come from a defense thing. But what people are willing to do now, we're going to score as many points as we can on offense. We're going to push it. We'll play bend but don't break on offense. Just on defense. Don't let the ball fly over our head. Make them settle for field goals every now and then.
Yeah.
And that is more than enough. So rather than saying we're going to hold teams to 14 or 15 points, they can get 20. If we're always scoring 28, it doesn't matter if we win. The Kansas City Chiefs have certainly provided a blueprint for teams to go all in on offensive football and win Super Bowls.
Lamar Jackson's in. Bucky Brooks says.
I mean, look what took so long. It's about time. They got him going. So they signed a deal, big deal for him. And now the big thing is, how is Todd Monken going to change the offense? What does the offense look like for the Ravens? You have OBJ, who he was really good for the Rams when he came over prior to popping his knee in the Super Bowl. Zay Flowers, to me, has an opportunity to be a star. When I looked at him coming out of BC, he reminded me a lot of Antonio Brown when he was in his heyday in Pittsburgh. Terrific with the ball in his hands. So now, does this mean that Lamar Jackson's going more under center, more bootleg, more play action in a traditional sense, less of the design quarterback run, and more of using his athleticism to threaten you on the backside with bootleg play action concepts? Because as he gets older, his game has to evolve, and you have to evolve how you use them. And so I'm curious to see what this offense looks like. But right now, I'll sign off on it because everyone in that locker room speaks highly of Lamar Jackson. They appreciate and respect what he brings to the team as a dominant player. So now we have to see how this offense and how the former MVP evolves.
You can win a lot of ways in the NFC. You can kind of win one way in the AFC.
You got to score points.
A lot of
I mean, just think about the quarterbacks that are in. I mean, just the Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. I mean, you have Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, you have Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's the thing. We don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is a top 5 quarterback in the AFC like that.
I don't think he is.
I mean, that's what we're talking about when it comes to that. Sean Payton, maybe he can bring back Russell Wilson. So you talk about all of the quarterbacks. If you don't have a high-powered offense, you have no shot to be able to make a path in the AFC tournament.
Okay, a team you used to work for. Not only did you work for Seattle, you worked with Carolina. People have been fired before. And Howard Stern got fired. He's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Frank Reich had a winning record in Indy with 5 quarterbacks in 5 years. Don't tell me he can't coach. I like the infrastructure over the last several months. They got Sean McVay. McVay guy's now the coordinator. Josh McCown. You think this is crazy? I think Bryce Young in Carolina are going to compete for that division title. I think he's that ready to play.
Well, I mean, I think it's wide open in that division. One, you talk about the Saints, the Falcons, the Buccaneers are down, and then you have the Carolina Panthers. What I love about the infrastructure, and I would give the credit to the owner. The owner, unlike some ownerships who just kind of give it to the head coach and the head coach hire all their buddies, I've been told that the owner I want the best of the best. So I don't want all these interconnected guys. I want the best offensive coordinator I can find, the best wide receiver coach, the best this, and we're going to put it all together and have a think tank. So now you talked about those guys. You talked about Thomas Brown, offensive coordinator, Josh McCown being the quarterback coach, Sean Jefferson is coaching the wide receivers. But I would say the guy that might be the hidden gem is Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell, former head coach, had Detroit up and going, a guy who has worked with great quarterbacks, a guy who has done it with Peyton Manning, helped Joe Flacco.
He got to the Lions in the playoffs.
Right. So think about that and think about him being in the building and just kind of being the wise elder to be able to whisper sweet nothings in Bryce Young's ear and help all of those coaches. To me, the infrastructure is great. They need more firepower on the outside, but Bryce Young can absolutely get it done. And we know because we're in Southern Cal. And what I was trying to talk about with Bryce is he has been in charge of big brands. Modern Day High School in Southern California is a major brand, 2-time national champion while he was there. Goes to Alabama. Alabama's a huge brand. He handled it in presidential fashion. I think part of why Bryce Young was the number one pick is because they felt like he could represent as the face of the franchise, not only on the field, but off the field. And I think that's huge when it comes to making those picks.
So I was talking to a recruiting coordinator years ago when he was a junior in high school, and we were talking about all the quarterbacks in the country. And then I mentioned Bryce Young, and he went, oh, he's different. He's like, no, put him in a different – and there was like 4 or 5-star quarterbacks. And he's like, Bryce Young, he's like, no, he's just different. He's more mature. You can't duplicate him. He's the best. Steve Sarkisian said he was the only high school quarterback he saw that thought he could come to Bama, to how good Alabama is, and start day one.
Well, I mean, when you hear the stories about how he prepares and how he digs into the game plan and how the cooperation that he had with the coaches and how he is all of those things, because we loosely throw around franchise quarterback, but what people have to understand, part of being the franchise quarterback is you represent the franchise in everything that you do, how you carry yourself, how you handle the presser, how you handle your teammates in terms of leadership, the way that you dig into the preparation process. There are no days off. Your first one in, last one out, all of those things. Everybody that has been around Bryce Young can say that. Now, I had the opportunity to be around him and C.J. Stroud on the same team at Elite 11 and watching those guys go to work. And so Bryce Young absolutely represents. I think we're also going to find out that C.J. Stroud can also represent in a different way.
Exciting.
Oh, it's a great time.
Okay, how about this? Round 2, I got the tight end from Notre Dame just sitting out there, Michael Mayer.
Yeah, Michael Mayer. You have
Will Levis.
You have Will Levis. You have Hendon Hooker. You have Brian Branch, who is the safety from Alabama.
A bunch of good tight ends.
Yeah, so tight end class was solid. Probably maybe the best and deepest position in there. So day 2 today will be the day that you'll see some guys go that will say, man, this guy's a really good contributor right away. So this is a great opportunity for teams to kind of close the gap and surpass the competition if they're able to kind of knock it out the park on day 2 of the draft.
Bucky Brooks, Fox Sports. Are you part of it? You're part of the broadcast tonight? You're all bouncing around? Or
No, I'm bouncing around today. So today I kind of have off from there. But tomorrow, all day over at NFL Network, doing all kinds of stuff with the draft. So it should be fun.
Great seeing you, my friend. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.